The next session or next talk is going to be delivered by two people, BrettWard and Andrew Morn, both from the Department of Water. Brett is the Regional Manager, Department of Water South Coast Region. Brett worked for the Department of Agriculture in the area of coastal, saltland and rangeland regeneration. But for the past 16 years, he's worked on the South Coast with the Water and Rivers Commission, now the Department of Water, on all areas of water resource management. You may have also seen him in Tim Winton's Lockie Leonard TV series.
Thanks, Penny. Good afternoon, everyone. But if you watch that series, don't blink, because I think it lasts for about 10 seconds, that scene. Anyway, my one claim to fame. So I thought I'd very briefly introduce who the Department of Water is and what the difference is between what our role is and what Water Corporation does, because we're often asked, what's the difference between the Department of Water and the Water Corporation? Or people come up to me and say, how are things in the Water Authority these days? So things do move on. And the Water Corporation hasn't been the Water Authority for a long time, but that's okay. So I don't want to spend my whole time labouring that point, but so my topic is Albany's groundwater resources adapting to a drying climate. So having just said, I'm going to explain to you what the difference is between ourselves and the Water Corporation. You can see from this slide that we are the custodians, the Department of Water is the custodian of the state's water resources and the primary advisor to the Government of Western Australia on water services. And this photo was taken when the Minister was down here a few months ago, and so we had the opportunity to advise the government about water. Now, our purpose is to support the state's community, economy and environment by managing the water sustainably to achieve our vision, and I believe it's a community vision as well, of water for now and the future. And one key way we do that is to regulate the taking of water to ensure that it's managed sustainably. So the Water Corporation. The Water Corporation is the state-owned water utility providing water and waste water treatment services. So we've heard from a lot of speakers today about predictions about climate, and Artemis has really positioned us well when it comes to what the impacts of that might be on water and how we take those measurement of that water into account. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the strategic long-term water planning that the Department of Water is doing in this region. And Andrew will follow me and talk about our search for more water in the Albany area and the hinterland. But he will also go into a lot of detail about some of the work that we've been doing in the Albany groundwater area. So for those of you that are not from Albany, and perhaps even those of you who live in Albany and aren't sure, Albany's water supply comes from two sources. It comes from a small pipehead dam on the Angove River out near Two People's Bay, and the rest of it comes from groundwater, what we call the Albany groundwater area, that extends along the coast from around Little Grove up towards Robinson Road and out past the wind farm. So today, as we were having lunch, if we looked out that window over to the other side of the harbour, that's where the majority of Albany's drinking water comes from. Now, Artemis has already mentioned some of the detail about Albany's rainfall record, and I've popped a picture up here, which is essentially an image showing Albany's drying climate. And I want to draw a couple of things to your attention. And that is this little cog here is Albany, and you may not be able to read it, but basically up here that says that so far to date, Albany is experiencing its lowest rainfall year on record. And to the end of October, we have had about 530 millimetres of rainfall, and the 1975 to 2014 average is 878 millimetres of rainfall. And 2014 was the previous lowest year on record at 649. So just a little snapshot about how we're tracking for rainfall. We know that this is presenting some of the information. Artemis showed us a chronological record of rainfall. What I'm showing you here is one of Artemis's slides that clusters the rainfall into these categories. So if we refer to blue on this chart versus blue up here, that is, I'll read it off here, my glasses don't work that well. Sorry, I should have memorised that one, I haven't, but I will. Maybe it's not a duo, we'll get Artemis to pipe up and correct me. So that is well above average. So essentially all I'm trying to say is that we can categorise these years, and what it does is shows a very interesting, and I'll point out why it's relevant later, but we see that some years are well above average, some years are average, that's this average, some years are below average, and some years are well below average, and we just happen to be in this well below average this year and last year, and you can see along the bottom which years fall into what categories. And the point of all this is, and we've already noted it through this conference, is the climate can be incredibly variable. So how do you manage in that space of climate variability when you don't know from one year to the next how much water you're going to get falling out of the sky? Now, one of the advantages of using groundwater is that there's a little bit of a lag, a little bit of a buffer, and we'll see between rainfall and recharge, and therefore if you're drawing from that aquifer, there's a little bit of a buffer there, and Andrew will explore that a little bit in his talk after me. So we know for the south coast there's been a decline in rainfall since 1975. For Albany and Denmark it's somewhere around the 8 to 9%. And so what are the implications of that reduced rainfall on our drinking water supplies? And so I'll explore that a little bit more. We know, Rob's talked to us just immediately prior, that seasonal conditions can affect our agriculture, but seasonal conditions also affect our demand, how much water people need to use. And Kayleen mentioned that as well for her piggery. She may be needing to use more water for keeping her pigs cool. But it also affects supply. So most notably, we saw that graph from Quickup Dam, which showed some years it would overtop, other years it wouldn't fill. And so the supply, it's pretty straightforward. If it doesn't rain, we don't have our water. There is an effect on groundwater and recharge as well. And I'd like to talk to you now a little bit about the water planning that the department has been doing. And we use a plan, reflect, act cycle. And so you can see from this slide, it all looks pretty basic stuff, but in this area here of planning, that informs our management decisions. We don't take those management decisions in isolation. That's done in consultation with the community and Water Corporation and other water users. The management plans that are put in place are then acted on, but then a lot happens in this reflect cycle with the monitoring that Artemis has shown us, evaluation of what does that mean now and in the short term and the medium term and the long term, and then what kind of change response. So in terms of the title of our talk today, my talk today being adaptation to a drying climate, what can we do in this space that allows us then to put things back into place as they relate to that management? So that bell means that I've got 2 minutes to go, and I won't try and get through all my slides. Essentially, what I did want to point out was a couple of interesting facts around the Great Southern Regional Water Supply Strategy. That is the outcome of quite a trajectory of lots of steps along the way, and many of you in this room have been involved with those at some time or another. And underneath here is some of the things that have been put in place as a result of this planning and up the top there. So the planning goes hand in hand with actions. So moving right along, just to give you a bit of a snapshot of the amount of water that's used in the Great Southern, in 2031, about 31 gigalitres of water was used in the Great Southern area, and that was mostly used for agriculture. So we can see this dark colour here, 24 gigalitres for agriculture. Urban water, around about 6 gigalitres, a little bit for mining and a little bit for industry. And the town water supply was around about 20% of that. So that means 80% of the water in the area, in the region, is actually from self-supply. We predict through that work that in another 20 years' time, on a medium growth we'll need roughly 20 gigalitres more of water. And so essentially, that's when Andrew gets up. He's going to start talking about what are we doing in that space in terms of planning and looking for water to help us to meet our needs so that the Albany Great Southern region can continue to grow. Next slide I wanted to show you was that the Lower Great Southern Town water supply inside here is run by the Water Corp, so Albany there, Mount Barker here. In 2007, our water use was around, our drinking water use was around 5.3 gigalitres. But through water efficiency measures and the community responding to the need to save water and use it more efficiently, that was able to be reduced down to 4.2 gigalitres. Now, a gigalitre is 1,000 million litres, or 400 Olympic-sized swimming pools of capacity. So essentially, the community, you people here, not turning your taps on, not watering your lawns, however you did it, taking shorter showers, we were able to use our water more efficiently, which takes that pressure off our water supplies. There's a lot of information on here, and I'm not going to try and get through it all, but essentially, our aim is to manage water resources sustainably. We want to optimise the use of it, and we want to identify new water supply options. So I've just talked a bit about efficient use and reducing our water use. And now Andrew's going to get up in a moment and talk about the investigations that we're doing to plan and develop for new water sources in the Great Southern. Artemis mentioned we're in a dry season. I've mentioned we're in our driest year on record to date in Albany. And so essentially another thing the department's doing with all its water licensees and the community generally is to get this message out about thinking and planning for your summer water action. And on that note, I'd like to hand over to Andrew. Thank you very much.